Try to remember the last video you watched. Not just the short one, but the long one. At least 15 minutes, or maybe 20 minutes. Or if you like reading books a lot, then try to remember the last book you've read. How much information do you remember from that? Can you retell me all the information that you've written? Just try to remember everything from it. For example, if it is a book, try to remember the chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and all the advice from it that you felt was useful to you. Or if you watch the video, try to remember the whole all the information that was useful from the video. Or if it's an article, try to remember everything from the article that was useful. How much do you remember? Probably maybe 15%, maybe 20%. If you have really nice memory, you may remember 35% of it, maybe even 45%. Some people may remember even 50% of it, but you'll probably forget it in a month. Most of it will just be somewhere on the corner of your subconsciousness and how do you say it, subconsciousness, and you will forget it. In a year you won't even remember it. You may remember one small advice in some critical situation, but that's it. That was your whole book that you were reading for like a week. So what was the point? And what point am I trying to suggest here? What I'm suggesting is that you don't actually read it to remember anything. You just read it as you would read a fiction book. Like if you like some books and you want to read it just for your own joy, that's how you would read it. You would open it and just start reading it from chapter 1 to the last chapter, and then you would never open it again, and you would say just that was the nice book. You would close it and put it on the shelf. Or if it's the electronic book, you would just close the file and open the next one. That's it. But if you try to read the book for the knowledge, that's not an option. And the option that I suggest is to write notes, to try to actually write down the information that you find interesting. It may feel boring for you, but hear me out. Just whenever you watch a video or read a book and you find something interesting or something that you think it may be useful to you, just write down a note, either on the piece of paper or just in the notepad on your phone. It's that simple. Just something little that explains some kind of thought. For example, you were reading 48 Laws of Power and you were reading the law number 1, something like don't outshine your master, which says about the law of power that if you try to look better than your master, that then you would fail and you would lose the power from him. You would just read something like that and you would think, that's a really nice law that I may use in my personal life. For example, if I'm working and I try to outshine my boss or outshine some kind of a teacher that I dislike in school, I may get in trouble, and that's why I have so many problems. I need to write this down. Or you may read something about self-improvement, and you may find out that if you eat some kind of grains in the morning, your mind may get foggy, and you will think that's a really nice thought that I need to remember. So just open the notepad and just write down if eating grains at the morning equals bad. Just that simple. Or grains morning equals bad. Just that quick. And firstly, the mere fact of you writing this thing down already helps you remember this thing much better than before, because the moment you wrote it down, you activated not just the neurons that you're using when reading this thing, but you actually use several neural networks in your brain. And there are many, I don't know the whole science about it, but just the fact that you're using so many parts of your brain to note this information helps you remember this thing much better. So just from writing this down, your period of remembering this thing may go from just 3 days to maybe several weeks or even several months, just from you writing this down. And you can take it even further. For example, if I have some new information that I found out, I may use the application like Anki. If you don't know what it is, it's the spaced repetition application where you can create a flashcard, and after repeating it, you will after reading it, it will be shown up the next day, then 3 days later, then 7 days later, then like a few weeks later, then a few months, and then in a year, and then in several years, and then maybe even in a decade if you're still reading these flashcards. So in just like 7 repetitions that happened each week, and then each month, and then each year, you may remember this thing forever, because it accounts for your brain remember this information better and better and better until it shows it's just years later when you remember it for good in your brain. So I usually use this spaced repetition to remember something interesting, for example, or something that I need to note. So here's an example. We wrote down that grains at morning equals bad. So what you do is you open down the Anki app. It's not an advertisement, it's completely free. You open this app and you create a deck, for example, stuff to remember. You call it stuff to remember, and you add a card and you write on top of it, grains at morning equals bad. And then you read it today, and if you think that you remember this, you say good. So it would show this card the next day. Then the next day you may open it, and if you actually remember the grains equals bad and you didn't eat the grains, you press good again, and it will show up in 3 days. However, if you forgot about it and you started eating grains and your mind gets foggy and you didn't want this, and then you open this thing and it shows that grains at morning equals bad, you say, right, I forgot. So you press again and you repeat it again. You need to start and so it will show up, it will reset the timer, and you will need to repeat it the next day again. By this method I have like 500 cards about lots of stuff, from finances to relationships to health, just everything. And I need to just repeat like 10 cards a day. It takes 2 minutes to repeat them, to check if I still remember this information. And so I remember 500, like each piece, each flashcard that I have. It's basically the whole video you're watching right now, just taking some advice and implementing it. Even this advice that I'm telling you about, trying to write down the information, it's still in my flashcards. And imagine 500 advices like this, 500 pieces of advice. And imagine the fact that you need to spend 2 minutes to recall all this information. It may be like 10 best books that you would ever read, and they're in your head just because you spend 2 minutes a day to repeat this information. I think it's quite amazing. And just imagine you not remember this information at all, and just reading the book and not spending 1 minute to write down, even 30 seconds to write down a note, and 30 seconds to create a card, and like 10 seconds a day to repeat this card. And because of that, you forgot this crucial information that could make you millions of dollars, or create strong relationships, or add something to the body of your dreams, just because you didn't do this little action. So that's why just at least write down the note. And if you've written it down, you may as well create the flashcard and add this information there. Now you may have you may take a step further and use the technology called the Zettelkasten method. I will write it down in the description how to spell this thing. It's basically a method of taking lots of information on such cards, lots of notes, and connecting them together according to some topic. I may explain it much better in the future videos, but the point of it is that you have lots of cards about different topics connected together by some common topics, and because of that you may find out some interesting connection that you would never think about. It's basically like the second brain on your own. There are many systems to maintain such notes. One of them is called Obsidian. You may use some notes in the Obsidian application and Obsidian software on your PC. It's also completely free, and it's quite amazing thing. I keep most of the notes in my computer about that, and whenever I need to find something, some notes about something that is bothering me, for example about money, I just write down the topic money, and suddenly I see like 20 different notes that are connected to this money topic. They may come from different sources, and they may completely related or even slightly related to money, but they're still connected to this topic. And I may find some note I made like 4 years ago that helped me with this thing. So it's an amazing thing. So there it is. Just use some of the advice I gave you today. You may try it just today. It's that simple. You may do something simple as just writing a note every time you see some new information. Just that simple. If you would already remember some kind of stuff that you found out like 10 times more. Then if you create, you may create an Anki note which will help you remember the stuff forever. But if there's some stuff that you don't need to remember every day, but you still need to have it in your arsenal of knowledge, then you may create this Zettelkasten system and just add the notes there. It also takes 5 minutes to add most of the notes. Use whatever you think is useful, and just at least try to write down the notes. After writing down the notes, you will realize you remember like 100 times more information than before. I said 10 times more, but I think it's 100 times more information, because you actually train your brain to remember more information. You tell your brain that we're gonna remember everything. We're not just gonna to mindlessly read the book or watch a video. We're gonna remember everything useful from it. Gonna just suck everything useful out of this thing. So write down notes. Thank you. See you in the next video.